Thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video, more about them later. There's something so intoxicating about Robocop. I rewatched all 3 films and replayed the incredible Rogue City recently, and I gotta tell ya, I've never been more in love with this franchise, particularly the first movie. The practical effects, the insanely evil performance by Kurtwood Smith, and of course, that satirical edge director Paul Verhoeven is known for.
I'd buy that for $1.
It's just so good. In many respects, Robocop is like any other superhero movie. There's a traumatic origin moment that grants the main character superpowers, and then those powers are used in the fight for justice. But in most of these stories, the powers give the hero more freedom. Now that they got the muscle, they can impose their righteous values on society. But that's not quite what happens in Robocop. Murphy's transformation actually gives him less freedom. Even by the end, he remains bound by the 4 directives hardwired into his programming by the corporation that literally owns him. With Robocop, it's less about breaking the rules to promote a hero's noble vision, and more about executing the existing ones with ruthless efficiency. Much has been said about the film's poignant satire of Reagan-era neoliberalism, and we'll break that down in a sec, but I think the film's genius operates on another level. Yes, it humorously mirrors our descent into a late capitalist hellscape, but it also turns its critical eye towards us as participants in that system. Because at the end of the day, just like any other superhero, Robocop's empowerment is also our fantasy of empowerment. With other superhero movies, there's the fantasy that an exceptionally moral individual with exceptional abilities can save society. But Robocop doesn't really play that game. It serves a different fantasy. Because what if saving society isn't even what we want? What if Robocop reveals that if we're honest with ourselves, what we really crave is the satisfaction of functioning efficiently, of being good at our role, even within a rotten system? Well, to find out, we're gonna have to take a close look at one of the greatest movies of the 80s, revisit some absolute banger superhero movies, and talk about a mediocre Netflix adaptation of a phenomenal book. Be sure to subscribe and click below to follow me on Letterboxd, because we're about to dive in. But first, a quick recap. In crime-ravaged old Detroit, mega conglomerate Omni Consumer Products has taken control of the police force and plans to demolish the entire city and replace it with a privatized utopia they call Delta City. After OCP's first law enforcement robot catastrophically malfunctions, an ambitious executive proposes a new cyborg officer built from a recently deceased cop. So, Officer Alex Murphy, having just been brutally gunned down by gang leader Clarence Boddicker, becomes the unwilling subject of the experiment and is reborn as Robocop. Robocop becomes a media sensation, cleaning up the streets with incredible precision, but fragments of Murphy's past memories begin to resurface, haunting him with visions of his former life. As he investigates his own murder, Robocop discovers that Boddicker works for OCP executive Dick Jones. When Robocop tries to arrest Jones, his programming prevents him from acting against an OCP employee until the company's CEO fires Jones, freeing Robocop to execute him. The CEO asks Robocop for his name, to which he simply answers,
Murphy.
The end. It was once said by my favorite philosopher Slavoj Žižek that the most subversive thing you can do to an ideology is take it seriously. And that, I think, perfectly describes what Paul Verhoeven does with Robocop. Released in 1987, Robocop came on the scene at the peak of the Reagan era, when neoliberalism fully displaced the New Deal consensus that shaped America since the 30s. Reagan's administration championed a radical restructuring of society, slashing social programs, deregulating industries, breaking union power, and, most crucially, insisting that the private sector could do everything better than government. The solution to every social ill was the same: privatize it, marketize it, let competition work its magic.
Shifts in the tax structure have created an economy ideal for corporate growth.
So with Robocop, Verhoeven asked, what would it look like if we went all out with those beliefs? If, as Reagan insisted, private enterprise is inherently more efficient than government, then Robocop shows us a world where nearly every public sector has been swallowed by a single corporation, Omni Consumer Products.
We have gambled in markets traditionally regarded as non-profit. Hospitals, prisons, space exploration.
Even the police force becomes just another product line.
The enforcement droid, Series 209, is a self-sufficient law enforcement robot.
If, as neoliberal logic suggests, the best way to solve social problems is investment via the market, then Robocop shows us a board of directors salivating over plans to demolish the entire city of Detroit and erect Delta City in its place. Basically, if you made a city-sized Walmart. If the ideal citizen under neoliberalism is an entrepreneur of the self, your body, skills, and time, all assets to be optimized and rented to employers, then Robocop shows us a man who dies on the job, but whose body is literally reanimated by his company so he can return to work. This time, even more productive. This time without pesky human needs, human rights, and definitely no union reps.
He's product. Is that clear?
Other characters too are spoken about like assets.
I'm cashing you out of.
If the only guiding principle in media is you gotta give the people what they want, then we get a culture that relishes violence when it's packaged as entertainment.
Nuke 'em. Get them before they get you. Another quality home game from Butler Brothers.
But is so oversaturated by it that when it happens to real humans, it barely registers.
Yes, it was a day of mourning for the families of 113 people known dead at this hour. A day of mourning for a country.
Of course, the over-the-top violence of the movie itself is meant to basically prove that this is already our reality. And if, as Reagan-era moral crusaders claimed, American society was under assault by Satanists, drug dealers, and urban decay, then the thugs in Robocop are an amalgamation of every 80s moral panic brought to life, all metalhead, punk rockers, Satanist hybrids. But here's the thing. You can imagine a version of this story where Murphy regains his humanity completely, overthrows OCP, and sparks hope for a more just system. I mean, that's what most movies would do, but that's not what happens. By the end, Robocop and the entire police force remain under OCP's control, with the system marching unimpeded toward Delta City. So what we have is a movie in which we're shown a clearly deranged society.
There's no better way to steal money than free enterprise.
Where our protagonist becomes an unwilling instrument of that society's most cynical goals, and somehow this still appeals to us. I mean, Robocop is freaking awesome. How is this even possible? Well, I think it's because the film taps into something we don't often see in other superhero movies, and the best way to understand it is to look at one particular beat in the superhero story structure, the honeymoon phase. But what's no honeymoon is prices these days. With all the holiday gifts I gotta buy, I can't afford to keep paying for streaming services I totally forgot about. That's where this video sponsor, Rocket Money, helped me big time. Rocket Money is an all-in-one personal finance app that helps you cancel unwanted subscriptions, lower your bills, and manage your money smarter. I'm always chasing down really specific movies, which means signing up for streamer after streamer and then forgetting. Luckily, I downloaded Rocket Money and managing my finances instantly got easier. Once I connected my bank account, the app showed me every subscription I was paying for, including some I totally spaced on. With just a couple taps, Rocket Money helped me start the process of canceling them. Rocket Money also put cash back in my pocket when it helped me negotiate my phone bill, and their budgeting tools give me a clear picture of where my money's going so I know I'm spending responsibly. So join the over 10 million people already using Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/JaredBauer or scan the QR code to start your premium trial. And now, back to the structure of superhero movies. The honeymoon phase follows the traumatic origin. It's when the hero discovers their powers, experiments, plays around, and often uses them to invert the dynamics that they were previously trapped in. It's a fantasy of self-realization, of finally being in control. Take the stone-cold classic, The Mask.
I could be a superhero!
Man, this movie is so good. Anyway, Stanley Ipkiss starts the film a total pushover. He's ripped off by shady mechanics, belittled by his boss, and humiliated in front of his dream girl. Then he puts on the mask, and all that flips upside down. He wrecks the mechanic's shop, robs his boss's bank, and knocks Tina's socks, or well, shoes off. With the mask, he can actualize his personal desires. Even in Batman Begins, there's a certain satisfaction during the honeymoon period when Batman foils Falcone's drug operation, especially considering how he dismissed Bruce as just some kid years earlier. Bruce's angsty teen revenge fantasy, now backed by ninja training and military-grade tech, becomes world-shaping. Individuality is amplified. What's unique and actually key to the humor of Robocop is how this doesn't happen at all. During the honeymoon period, there's no personal satisfaction or self-realization. It's just flawless mechanical execution. He stops a holdup at a bodega.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
Then famously proceeds to shoot a in the Part of the reason this scene works so well is that the ego enhancement is entirely absent. Not even a flirtatious moment with the victim. It's just ruthless efficiency.
Madam, you have suffered an emotional shock. I will notify a crisis center.
And yet, these moments are every bit as thrilling as the other honeymoon phases, but the satisfaction that they offer is fundamentally different. It's not about taking the self and turning it up to 11, it's about losing the self entirely in a role, of becoming the perfect cop. And I think the movie even acknowledges this. In the following sequence, a city councilman goes postal after losing an election, holds his entire office hostage, and demands a recount. He's driven mad by losing his role, his sense of identity.
And no matter how it turns out, I want my old job back!
It's basically the reverse of what just happened to Murphy. The ex-councilman lost his role, while Murphy lost his individuality. The ex-councilman had his social position stripped away, Murphy had his self stripped away. And while we'd like to think that we'd prefer losing a job, that we'd rather be the ex-councilman than Murphy, but maybe not. Because there's something undeniably satisfying about knowing exactly who to be, about having a role complete with directives, protocols, and social validation, and executing it flawlessly. In every superhero story, the honeymoon eventually ends. There are consequences to the hero's dual identity, and they're forced to work out a compromise between the two. Ipkiss has to wrestle with if he has any self-worth without the mask, and tries to date Tina as just Stanley. In Batman Begins, Bruce realizes it's really hard to be Batman without turning Bruce Wayne into a vapid tool.
It's what you do that defines you.
With Robocop, something similar happens. When Murphy's memories of his family and murder resurface, he starts to hunt down Clarence. He visits his old home where there's an interesting visual contrast. When we see his perspective as Robocop, there are scan lines, but when he remembers his past life with his wife and kids, the image is clear. Whereas in other movies, powers bring clarity, a greater access to the truth, in Robocop it's the opposite. His perspective is now mediated by the evil corporation that owns him. Like every other superhero, this duality needs to be resolved. Bruce realizes that in order to advance Batman's mission, he must sacrifice the Wayne family name. But he still rebuilds Wayne Manor because on the DL he sees his project as an extension of his father's legacy. You know, the whole why do we fall thing.
So that we can learn to pick ourselves up.
In Spider-Man, Parker has to reject MJ because advancing Spider-Man's higher moral calling means sacrificing Peter Parker's desires. In all these films, the resolution serves the hero's individual moral vision. Their struggles are all in the service of refining and empowering their personal ethics, cause that's what society needs. In Robocop, the synthesis is similar in the respect that he integrates humanity into his new life as a cyborg. Robocop takes off his helmet, goes by Murphy, and struggles with his memories.
I can feel them, but I can't remember them.
His human element even empowers him in a way. He defeats Ed 209 with the simple human act of walking down a flight of stairs, and kills Clarence using his data spike in a way not in line with its programmed functionality. Like a human, he improvises. The difference is that Murphy's synthesis doesn't empower the moral vision that the city needs. In fact, Robocop never even identifies the real problem. When he goes after Dick Jones, it's just because he hired Clarence to kill his rival.
Dick Jones is wanted for murder.
What he doesn't uncover is that Clarence's crime ring is less a symptom of a broken city and more a feature of corporate planning. Dick Jones isn't just employing Clarence to get rid of his enemies, he's funding Clarence's gang to justify the construction of Delta City. Wiping out crime was never part of the plan. It's a feature built into the future of Delta City that Dick promises to Clarence.
That means drugs, gambling, virgin territory for the man who knows how to open up new markets.
Point is, for Robocop to enact justice, he would have to step outside his role and see the bigger picture, But he doesn't. His humanity doesn't lead him down that path. In the film's finale, Robocop outs Dick Jones in front of the board and tries to bring him to justice, but he can't because he's programmed not to hurt any OCP employee. It's only when the CEO fires Jones,
Dick, you're fired!
that Robocop is able to take him out, and the movie closes with a moment that plays almost like a cheesy western.
Nice shooting, son. What's your name?
Murphy.
And this moment is key to the enduring relevance of Robocop. It's inspiring because it solidifies his reclaimed humanity, but it also feels kinda sarcastic. Like, that feeling of inspiration we feel is us falling for the trap, but we love it. Because at the end of the day, he's still an instrument of OCP and he's not fixing the real problem. He's still fulfilling his role, and it's super satisfying for us to watch.
Yes, I am a cop.
Now, the question is, why? Why is a role, or watching someone fulfill a role greatly, so satisfying? Because a role allows us to outsource difficult questions. What should I do and what should I believe? A role gives us a ready-made structure of meaning, essentially a script. A soldier doesn't have to agonize over every moral dilemma. Their role believes in the mission for them. A judge doesn't have to be jazzed about every law in the books. Their role believes in the law for them. When you invest in a role, it believes on your behalf. And yes, as my longtime viewers might have guessed, this brings us to my favorite philosopher Slavoj Žižek and one of the key insights in his theory of ideology. For Žižek, ideology today functions via outsourcing, of having someone or something believe in the ideas for you. It's not important that I believe in the values of my society, say, some of the neoliberal ideas we discussed earlier. Maybe I'm even openly critical of them. But as long as I know that someone somewhere does believe in them, I can keep functioning efficiently within that system. Žižek claims that this structure of belief by delegation keeps the system running. We can laugh at institutions, we can mock their corruption, we can call out their hypocrisy, and yet we can still wake up the next morning and enjoy playing our roles within them. I think this notion was best portrayed in the 1985 novel by Don DeLillo, White Noise, which was rather awkwardly adapted by Netflix in 2022, well, at least that's what I think. At the end, the protagonist Jack Gladney enters a church and is surprised to learn that none of the nuns there believe in God, but they continue in their roles so they can believe on behalf of others. A nun says, "The non-believers need the believers. They're desperate to have somebody believe. It is our task in the world to believe things no one else takes seriously. If we did not pretend to believe these things, the world would collapse." Basically, I don't need to personally believe religious ideas in order to get these social or spiritual comforts. As long as there's a giant institution, nuns, priests, cardinals, that are believing for me, I can feel comfortable going through the motions, going to church, taking communion, etc. Because hey, at least somebody believes in it. That's what a role provides, a network of meaning that carries belief on your behalf. When you become a soldier, a lawyer, a cop, you get the assurance that someone somewhere believes in the values tied to that role. You don't have to believe. The role does it for you, and that makes going through the motions associated with that role much easier. Because ultimately, the formula that gets us through the day is this kind of managed cynicism. We know the system is flawed, maybe even corrupt, yet still find satisfaction in performing our roles well within it. And that's exactly what Robocop offers us. We can laugh at the absurdity of OCP's corporate dystopia, mock its inhumanity, while still relishing the power fantasy of watching someone perform a role within it flawlessly. We might think we're cynical about capitalism, neoliberalism, or whatever symbolic order we inhabit. We disavow it with slogans like corporations are evil or there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, but we still derive so much meaning from performing effectively within it. We're all eager to announce how critical we are of consumerist values, yet we're desperate to adorn ourselves in the signifiers of consumerist success. Big salary, big house, big portfolio, big follower count, etc. Because while we may like to believe that our fantasy is Batman, the lone rebel imposing our own righteous morality on the world, maybe our fantasy is actually Robocop. We don't want to change the system. We want the psychological benefits of condemning the system while enjoying performing our role within it efficiently. because at least then we know what we're supposed to do. Hey y'all, thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out rocketmoney.com/JaredBauer or scan the QR code for a free premium trial. Also be sure to subscribe because in January I got a video coming up about The Exorcist and its legendarily horrible sequel that I'm kind of obsessed with. So I hope you guys have a great holiday season and I'll see you next year. Peace.